Good afternoon and welcome to today's driver's ed session. So please log in. We're on the home stretch. So put your name in the comments. Text me that you are here. I know that people are getting ready because all the articles and comments about the articles have been sent to me recently. So you are doing your homework, which pleases me. Good afternoon. Kind of a windy one. We may have some windows rattling because I'm enclosed by a side room that has a lot of windows. Almost got a full class, went up to 14 and then down. So we'll wait a few more minutes. While we're waiting, I think most of you received the text message. I'll be sending that out later tonight or tomorrow, so your parents will have a copy. But I would like you to share the information just in case it goes to their junk file. I don't know if you did your registration through Eventbrite, so I don't know if Eventbrite gets flagged on people's computers as being junk mail coming in. So I want to make sure your parents understand what we have left and what we're going to do as we proceed forward in driver's ed with the driving portion. So make sure you are only going to have your textbooks till Saturday. So make sure you go to, let's see if I can. This is our syllabus. This is what we were doing all during the program. So you should be looking down and seeing, oh, I had chapter 1 questions. Did I do those? And you should have a copy in your text messages. That is the nice thing that I like about text messages, is that it has a history of what you have sent to me and whether I have it or not. And that's basically what I use to scroll through it. It's a little bit easier. The online midterm and the sample questions that we had last week, I have that on file through that company. So I can just search your name and see basically what you had for a score. And it's kind of cool that on that testing site, I can go back and take a look at questions that people got wrong. I can take a look at how long it took you to complete the test. I actually got one of you, and I'm not going to call you out, but you took the midterm during the class that we held the next day, which wasn't cool. Okay, so make sure that you do as I ask you to do. So make sure homework is done. Make sure that you are here, signed in, signed out, because if the state finds out that you did not comply with what they put into place for this remote driver's ed program, you do not get credit. Okay, you have to understand that. Is that the state oversees what we are doing to make sure that we have had a program where you're being given information, you're being tested on it, you have homework to do, and that you have to be present for our discussions. So it is important that you comply with that. So make sure that we have everything that we need done. So let's talk a little bit about today. I think of all the different topics that we go over, distracted driving is probably at the top of the list for concerns for the general public about where we're going as a society with driving, because we're finding that multitasking in the car is a common problem for every age group. So I'm not going to just pick on young people today. It's probably even more of a problem for adults because you're in school most of the day. So when you take a look at a 24-hour period, you're not going to be out on the road for all 24 hours. So of course, you're going to have a curfew with your driving too. But truck drivers, adults that are working, food industry where they're still out around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. We find people out on the road all the time, all hours of the day. And if you're driving, there's always going to be that temptation to be on the phone or doing something else. And it doesn't have to be just on the phone. Anything that takes your attention away from driving is a distraction. Before we get into it, though, and once again, I should keep a list a little sticky to remind me of what we did. One of the things we talked about yesterday was lane splitting. And I think someone leaked into our program. I had never seen that handle on Google, on YouTube. So I had to kind of quiet them or suspend their usage. But they did bring up a good question, which I thought was kind of interesting. The first one wasn't too smart, but the second question was pretty good. How many states? So I did look into that, and there is only one state in the country that allows lane splitting, and that's California. Now in Europe, over in China too, they do allow at lower speeds that motorcycles can lane split. So let me show you what lane splitting is. So that's any time that a motorcycle goes in between cars to the right of the vehicle or to the left of the vehicle. Now, the problem that we have is that they're going faster than they should be traveling. And if something goes wrong on a motorcycle, it is not going to be to the benefit of the motorcycle rider. So let's take a look at lane splitting. Yeah.
Ёбаный дурак, блядь.
Ой, господи, Настя, остановись.
So you can see that it is a dangerous maneuver, and notice the motorcycles were going faster than the speed of prevailing traffic. If they had stayed in that lane splitting position, but just traveled a little bit slower to give people a chance to look in their side mirrors, they probably would have been a little bit safer. But they were going at a pretty good clip, and it also showed one motorcycle rider coming into a roundabout a little bit too fast. So we know that a lot of mistakes after yesterday's class, it's the fault of the cyclists because they're going faster than they should, and then that people just don't pick them up in the driving scene. So that is what lane splitting is. If you didn't understand what we were talking about yesterday, I want to make sure that you took a look at that, because it does happen quite often, especially on highways. And when they're very busy, people want to get off the highway if they're on a motorcycle. So they'll say, what the heck, and I'll just go right up the side. All right, so let's get right into distracted driving, texting and driving. One of the many forms of distracted driving is being on your phone. So we're going to focus on some statistics. Now, everything that I put up here on the slide, I do not want you to write down. So I want you to kind of get an overview of the subject and basically understand how that's going to affect you as a driver. Okay? I don't expect you to remember percentages and numbers. Okay? There are only a few, probably 3 that are really key, and I want you to remember. So don't be fooled with distracted driving. The thought of multitasking seems to be safe, but it's the furthest thing from the truth. So what I want you to write down, any activity that takes your attention away from driving is considered distracted driving. So let's see if we can kind of come up with what would be something other than being on your phone. Okay, hopefully you've had a few seconds to think about it. Eating, changing music, whether it be, now we don't have to worry about cassettes and CDs. Now everything is Bluetooth, but you're not supposed to be going down to your phone to look in your iTunes library to change. Could be getting something from the glove compartment. It could be reaching to the back of the seat around you. So anything that's taking your focus away from the roadway is going to be considered distracted driving. Q gave me this video, and I've been using it for about 3 years. And I think because we're near the end of the driver's ed program, it really kind of covers a few topics that we've discussed. So after I show this video, we're going to just take a moment and break things down, all right? So this was a commercial that was done in Scotland back probably about 5 years ago. The director used his family. So when you see the young family that's in the car that had been hit, that is part of the director's family. So remember, this is a commercial. It is not real life.
Hi, Dave. My mate Jules fancies you. Huh? It's not even funny now. Let me just get his number.
Bring an ambulance! Bring an ambulance! Stay still! I can't open the door. I've rung an ambulance.
We've got other people on the route to help, okay?
Please, look straight at me for a second.
3 vehicles have been involved.
Right.
2 people in the vehicle there. I can't get any response out of them
They're the ones in the front or the ones in the front?
Mommy, Daddy, wake up! Mommy, Daddy, wake up!
Right, I just can't get any response whatsoever.
I want Mommy and Daddy to wake up.
Any pain in your neck at all? nice and still for me. Alright? Keep looking at me. Alright?
Cassie?
Cassie, can you hear me? What's your friend's name in the back? What's it? Jules, is it? Nice and still there for me.
Okay, let's take a look at that commercial and break it down a little bit. So there were 3 girls in a car and they were texting. If you couldn't read the screen on the flip phone, and you could tell it was an older commercial because they had flip phones, they were texting a boy. Okay, they were more concerned about what was happening on the phone than they were driving. So that's the first thing that I want you to write down in your notes, is that if the driver is distracted, it now becomes your responsibility, one, to make sure the driver gets refocused on what they should be doing. If they do not get focused, then you become focused. You're the one that has to be looking out. Notice the car was drifting over the edge line. There was time to recover, but they looked down at their phone. Now, this is going to come up in another video, but I want to say it multiple times so you remember it. Write down 5 seconds. It has been proven that most people feel comfortable looking away from the road, like at their phone, up to 5 seconds. Once you hit around 4 to 5 seconds, people will look back up over the dashboard. They'll try to regain their focus. Now, if you can think back a couple weeks in driver's ed, we talked about change blindness. So remember, when you tip your head down to look at your phone, things are moving, things are changing. So when you look back up, there may be something that's not there anymore, or something that's there that wasn't there before. Okay, so it's very important to always keep your eyes focused on the roadway, because you just never know when something bad is going to happen. Now, let's break down the people in the vehicle. There were 3 cars that were involved. They hit one car that had elderly people in it. So I believe there were 2 people in that car. And then they hit a family of 4. Now, one thing we learned in driver's ed, once an airbag comes out of your dashboard, is there a second one coming right behind it to help you on a multiple crash? The answer is no. When airbags are deployed, it is once. You're one and done. So yes, it will help you in a crash. But if your car is spinning around and getting hit again, you no longer have the benefit of that airbag. This is where seatbelts come into play. You have to make sure that you're belted. Because a lot of times when we think about being hit, we think about being hit once. But in a lot of the articles, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to do the articles, is because you've got to remember is that if your article had someone that was involved in a crash, that what you saw in this video is basically what happened. Okay, their car went off the edge of the road, or it hit a car that they weren't paying attention to, and then seatbelts and airbags had to be utilized. And if they weren't, seatbelts on, or if the airbag was already deployed and they got hit again, they don't have that benefit. So I believe that there were 9 people that were involved in this crash. I believe 7 of them passed away. Now, let's just take a moment. I don't want to get grim. I don't want to get dour about what we're seeing, but driving a vehicle is a big responsibility. People can get injured. People can die from car crashes. if you are the driver, you are going to be held responsible. And this is part of the insurance piece that we talked about. You've got to make sure that you have adequate insurance. But the emotional toll that it will take on you. Think about the girl that they took away in the ambulance. She's in a lot of physical pain right now. But what she's going to suffer from in the months to come is not physical. Although maybe slightly, depending on what the injury is. I shouldn't say that. But I'm going to almost bet the emotional pain is going to be worse and longer lasting, because at any moment you can have a flashback to what you lived months and years ago. So I always want you to think about, yeah, you might be able to survive it. Yeah, your body will heal, but your mind and your emotions will take a toll. It's not going to be that easy. I will tell you that I've had a few students that have come through my driver's ed program that have been passengers in vehicles that have been hit. And every time they got into the car to drive with me, they always mentioned, I hope I don't get hit today. They're still reliving, even though they were a passenger, they're still thinking, I hope this doesn't happen to me now that I'm driving. Came up a lot. One girl in particular I can still remember. She was so traumatized by what happened to her. She gripped the steering wheel so tightly that the sweat from her palm would actually go down to the bottom of the steering wheel and drip from the bottom of the steering wheel. I still can remember that, seeing the drips come off the steering wheel. It was just so traumatic. So, what we find in a given year, this was back in 2015. I tried to get as much current information as I could, but they're usually about 3 to 4 years behind. But in that particular year, we've roughly had about 3,500 people killed and roughly 400,000 people injured. Now, off to the side, there are 4 different types of distracted driving. So don't write this down quite yet, but we're going to talk about it in a moment. So manually, visually, cognitive, and auditory. So you may not be tempted to do one of these distracted things, but you may find the others might be your downfall. So there are many forms that you're going to be affected. So now I want you to write it down with a definition. So a cognitive distraction is one that takes your attention away by thought and concentration. This could be someone that's talking to you from the back seat. They could be hollering at you that you just went by a business that you were supposed to stop at. And you're starting to think about, what number was it? Was I supposed to stop at, 75 or 77? And then you start, missing traffic lights that are changing. Auditory would be using your ears. This would be music. Of the distractions, this is my biggest one. My kids would tell you that when we're on vacation, I do not like them talking when I'm looking for my exit numbers, when I'm looking for what route that I'm on. I want the radio down. I just don't like a lot of noise in the background. I want it quiet so I can focus. So auditory will be a form of distraction. Visual, be using your eyes. This is the looking at the phone. This is looking at your messages, reading them, and then texting back out. And that's the manual part. That's changing the radio station. That's writing on your phone. That's anything that's causing you to look for letters. You should be focused on the road. You should not be doing any of these 4 things. So know these 4 categories. These were some of the things that we talked about. Texting, talking on the phone, playing music. Eating is a big one. Not so much, and I want you to write this down. We'll put eating, grooming, and passengers. Now, this is what I want you to write down. There are going to be times when you're driving that you're just going to be doing, like changing the radio station, changing the heat, the air conditioning. I'm not saying that you're going to be 100% perfect all the time. But what I want you to write down in your notes is plan on when you're going to take your focus away from driving and do it as quickly as possible. So if you're going to be getting a glass of water because you're coughing, I'm not saying a glass, a bottle of water, take a drink. That's okay. But it'd be much better to do it at a stop sign and a traffic light than when you're doing a lane change. You know, you may be coughing and hacking like crazy, but there is going to be a moment, hopefully, relatively soon, that it's going to be a lot safer than doing it when you're in a high risk driving area. So be smart. Be smart. Don't always just react. These are percentages that Liberty Mutual provided many years ago, and it's basically what we just saw before in the last slide, but it gives the percentage, how much more likely you're going to be involved in a crash or an incident if you're doing these. And of course, texting and driving is right at the top. This is an older map, so there is no more partial or no ban on these states. Every single state has some form of restriction with texting and driving. Now, some are more strict than others, and the question that always comes up, how do I know when I go to another state? You don't. So the best course of action for you to do is not to do it. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're on your phone. And especially since you're a young person, almost every state, it's going to be a lot harsher for a person that's underage if they've been caught texting and driving. And I actually had a student from Oyster River that I saw her, I don't know where we were, but I bumped into her and asked her how things were going. And she said, well, you're going to be kind of disappointed in me, Mr. Toll, but I got my first ticket. And I go, you did? You're a good driver. What happened? Well, I was in Dover and my phone rang and I picked it up. And, you know, I wasn't going very fast, but, you know, a police officer saw me. And that's how she got her first ticket. She was a very good driver. So it does happen. It does happen. I want you to write down that texting and driving has been proven to be just as bad as drunk driving, meaning that you are going to drift out of your lane. You're going to look like you're drunk because you're going slower and swaying. And so from a distance, you know, from the outside, it just looks like somebody's been drinking. So they may pull you over and ask you, have you been drinking? And you're going to go, no, and you actually haven't. Then they may ask you, well, have you been on your phone? They may not know that. It's very hard sometimes to see if someone's been on their phone. But you got to remember, too, is that you can always get someone's phone record. So if it was a crash, they'd probably do this. I don't think they would do this just because you're going over the white line. They wouldn't go after your phone records. But if someone was injured or died, I'll guarantee they are going to, the lawyers are going to go after your phone records, and they're going to be able to tell where you are on your phone relatively at the time of the crash. So don't think that they're not going to know. They're going to. But they wouldn't do that for just going over the white line, though. Can you believe this? Watch this.
Ja. Absolute, man. I'll look at the guy. What the fuck? Look at him, man. He's on his phone. He's texting. That's when we go on his side, dude. He's just chilling. He's a motorbike. Hey, what if you say? That's crazy.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Is that guy talented? Absolutely. I mean, he should join the circus. That would be a great thing to do in the circus. Put him on a track and let him go around like that. But at any moment, okay, as you can see right now, see the car? That car is almost on the dotted white line. If they're not paying attention and he's not paying attention because he's on his phone, there's going to be a crash. He hits a pothole. If he has to brake because someone's braking in front of him, it's just not safe. It's not safe. And the other thing, and someone brought this up, and I never thought about this till a student brought this up. And I think that the person that's taking the video is a passenger. But from the vantage point that you're looking at right now, if this is not in a country where the steering wheel is over on the right, then this picture was taken by someone that's driving. And that's not right. So there could be two things that's going on. You shouldn't be on your phone videotaping somebody doing something wrong because you're doing something wrong. But I actually think this might be in a country where they're driving on the right side of the vehicle and not the left. But when I came across that, I said, that's going in the topic of distracted driving. So let's write down a few facts. Like I told you, I wanted you to know a couple. So this is the first one. So this I want you to remember. It is the number one killer of teens in America. Coming in close behind speed, and then probably alcohol and drugs bringing up the third spot. But we are finding we are so attached to our phones that the fatalities that we're seeing out on the roadway for young people now, distracted driving is higher than alcohol fatalities. And we're building cars a lot better too. So that's another factor that we've got to think about. Second thing I want you to write down, and I've alluded to this already today, the average person will take their eyes off the road when texting for up to 5 seconds. That is about the length of a football field. So next time you drive with your parents, or we could do this when you finally do drive with me, we'll get into some area and I'll have you close your eyes for a moment. Just for a moment. I'll make sure that we do it on a straightaway. It will freak you out. I won't let you do it for 5 seconds, but I'll let you do it for a second or two. It is no different than if you're looking down than closing your eyes. It's the same thing. You're not focusing on the roadway. Now, I'm going to watch the road. I'm going to be holding the steering wheel if you're going to get too close to a line. But it is insane what people will do when they're all alone and there's nobody helping them out. And the last thing that I want you to write down is that teens are used to multitasking. Probably more than adults. You guys are probably a lot better on your phone than your parents. Okay, you can really rip off, messages so quickly. I watch my son. He's 21. He sits on the couch and man, his fingers are just going a mile a minute. Okay, can't do that when you're driving. Can't. It's not safe. 6 out of 10 crashes involve distraction for teens. We find that 15% with one or more passengers in the car. We find that 12% were on the cell phone, 10% looking at something in the vehicle, like maybe changing the radio station, dealing with the heat. 9% we have found has something to do outside of the vehicle. You become what we call a rubbernecker. Singing or dancing, so you're more into socializing in the car than you are keeping your attention. 6% are grooming. I'll tell you a funny story about grooming. I used to work for Prudential Insurance, and I had a colleague that would pick me up at times to go to work, and I've known him for years. And he was always a little bit late picking me up. And on those days that he was late, he would actually take an electric razor. He would shave while he drove. He would tip the rearview mirror like he would like a bathroom mirror so you could see if he's missing spots. He'd have an electric razor and he would be shaving. And let me tell you, I told him not when I'm in the car. I stopped that after once or twice. He tried to do it twice, and each time I called him out on it. So he never really liked picking me up after that. We basically kind of went over in 2015 what the distracted numbers were, so I'm not going to kind of key on that. I do want you to take a look at this chart, though, because I found this to be very interesting. In 2014, we were less than 3,000 deaths, and then all of a sudden, we spiked up to 2015, 2016. Huge spike for 2 years, and then it dropped back down. So what I want you to do on the comments here on YouTube, I want you to give me an idea why you think it spiked in 2015 and 16, and then why it got so much better in 2017 and 18. All right? So I want you to answer those two questions. Why did it get so bad? Okay, in those 2 years. And then why did it fall back down to less numbers? So let's see what you can do. I'll try to answer the questions a little bit later. So what are happening to people that are distracted? What's happening behind the wheel? You're leaving the road about 90% of the time. Okay, you're drifting over, whether it be the white line, the yellow line. Rear end crashes, this is usually happening at stop signs and traffic lights. you think you're on the brake, you think you're slowing down, but you're really not doing it enough, and you're not hurting anybody, but you're going to rear end people. Hitting people at an angle would be the person that's probably leaving the road. So road departure and hitting someone at an angle is probably closely related. And then total loss of control. Who knows? That could be a number of things that's going on. Okay, let's take a look. This was back a few years ago by AT&T. And what I want you to notice is that most of the people, and I want you to take a look right now, look at your phone. If you're not on your phone watching today's class, if you're on a computer, get out your phone and think about what was the last text that I sent out. It's probably not more than 3 or 4 words. Or if you received one, it was probably very short. And then now I want you to think about, was it really important for me to send that out? Could I have waited a half hour? Could I have waited an hour to respond to the text message? So I want to see if you can, figure that out. So let's take a look at the video.
My name's Grant Hendricks. I'm a trooper with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I'm at the site of Mariah West's accident. Mariah's vehicle traveled across this median and ended in striking the bridge that you can see behind me. When I got to the scene, her face was disfigured from sliding down the roadway. It's funny, the first thing I noticed about her was her shoes. Lying in the roadway in a large pool of blood, I noticed her shoes and I thought, this is a young girl. That's the first thing I thought when I saw this. And at that point is when I noticed her cap and gown was still in her car. She was going to graduate the next day. It was just a really horrific scene. All because of a senseless text message. It's just sad. Sorry, it's just sad.
Ashley would text hundreds of messages every day. That was the way we kept in touch. We would definitely text more than we talked.
Mariah was a multitasker extraordinaire.
She could text better than anyone I know. She could be having one conversation with me, completely focused,
while having a text conversation with somebody else.
When you do something 7,000 times a month, you tend to learn where those 26 letters are.
We would be at school, at home, movies, bowling, driving.
Not even looking at her phone.
Just simple,
insignificant,
useless, whatever it may be.
About anything and everything.
Just a way to pass the time.
It didn't matter where we were constantly texting. This is my sister. She was looking at my message that I had just sent her. When she looked up, she had clipped the median on the left-hand side of the road. Her truck flipped, and as it was flipping, she was actually ejected through the driver's side door, and she landed in the ditch about 300 feet from her truck. People will tell you over and over again, it's not your fault. But knowing that you were the person that she was talking to when she was killed. Just knowing, having a highway patrol officer write in a report that a text message sent at 12:05 is the reason that she is dead is not something that will ever go away. If I could talk to her one last time, I would just say I'm sorry. This is her cell phone that she used in the accident. 4 little letters. That's what killed her.
You never really think about it, but people associate drinking and driving as a dangerous thing. Your vision's impaired, your judgment's impaired. But if you look at texting and driving, your vision's not even there. You're not even looking at the road. If someone were to ask me to drive down the road and close your eyes for 5 seconds or 6 seconds, I would never even attempt that. But then if someone asks, read this text message and respond to that in about the same length of time, well, that would be no problem. I'd done that numerous times in the past before this accident. I was on my way home. I had my girlfriend in the car, and I'm just reading a text message, responding. I was looking up every couple seconds or so, like I always did. And I just hear a loud scream next to me, and the next second I look up and I see a bicyclist crashing the windshield. When I got out of the car, he didn't have a pulse, he wasn't breathing. He wasn't alive. There are no words to describe the level of grief, the level of depression and self-hatred I was going through. My first year of college, I just remember one girl recognizing me and saying, oh, I remember hearing about you. You're that guy who hit the bicyclist because you were texting and driving. That was actually the day before I ended up going to the hospital for emotional problems. I sent one stupid, meaningless text, LOL, and killed the man.
People don't realize it could just take 3 seconds. I was going to the movies and the car just went directly into a tree and it was a direct collision. I was the passenger. I collided with the tree on my right temple and I was declared dead on the scene 3 times. I used to be able to drive. I used to be able to go for walks. I used to be able to run around town by myself. I used to have a job. I was normal. And all this, I cannot do anymore because they had the text. This is the text message that changed my life forever.
The day before her graduation, my daughter drove to go meet a boy, and she never made it. Today, she would have been 19 years old, exactly.
Mariah never wanted a minute to go by that she wasn't doing something. She wanted to do everything all at one time with friends and family and just having a good time. That's what she loved.
Friends would tell me from school that, you know, the best part of the day at school was Mariah coming down the hall because she'd stop to give everyone a hug.
Okay, guys, in honor of Mariah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mariah.
She met a guy who played baseball, and one evening she just spontaneously got in her car and said, hey, I'm gonna come watch his game. He was texting her to tell her directions of where she needed to go.
And I guess she just looked away for too long. Where are you at, you know? Like that was it.
One of her friends had no idea that she had been in an accident, so he kept texting. We ended up having to send him a text back to say, please stop. She's in critical condition in the hospital, and we don't know if she'll even make it.
She always worked her magic, you know, and still to this day, without her being here, she's so much still a part of our lives every day.
She was our sunshine. She really was. She was.
It's a simple text message. Where are you at? 3 simple words.
She paid the ultimate price for her actions. I've had to do this more than once. Mariah is not the only victim that I've dealt with. And it never gets any easier. And it won't get any easier. What is worth losing your life over? That text message?
For those of you that responded, why you thought the numbers spiked, you are basically correct on many different levels. Because people, you know, were very young when they started. And notice in the video that they were flip phones. That's how old the video was. And it's all young people, too. But it was the increase of Touch ID on phones to make it very easy to access, to get onto your phone. It was so much easier. And social media started to spike in those years. And kids that were very young were very comfortable with phones, so now they're 16 getting their license. So there was a huge spike when we went to bigger screens and had more options of what to do on our phones. Then it went down, okay? And the big reason, and no one really came up with this, is because of those 2 years of having such incredible numbers. Those were incredible numbers. That was almost double to triple of what they had back in 2014. We enacted laws. Laws started to change in 18 and 19. And people started to go, I don't want to get caught and have a fine. So that's why they backlash. Now, once they get comfortable with knowing how strict the police are going to be, then you see the numbers starting to creep back up a little bit if we were to go back. Now, in this picture, and as I asked you to do before the last video, is what did you have on your cell phone as your last message sent or the last message that you received? It really isn't that important. Most of the information that we get, think about it, and well, actually, yeah, I think your parents would fall into this category, is that when your parents were learning to drive and getting their license, there were no cell phones, okay? They would have to wait till they got home to tell their parents why they were running late. Okay, you would, in my age group, okay, I'm in my late 50s, when I was in high school, if we had to talk to a friend, we would have to find a payphone. Okay, things were different. Okay, things are too easy nowadays, and we think that because they're easy, we don't have to think about why we do them. We just want them at our fingertips and make that decision on the fly, and we don't think about, well, maybe I should pull over into a parking lot, maybe I should wait till I get there and then send the text. But as you can see from this picture, this person probably did not survive the crash. This is a person that probably, you know, and by the way, that guardrail's not right either. That should have been buried into the ground. There's no way that guardrail should have been going right up through the middle. But anybody that was in that car was either killed or seriously injured. So that message that the driver was tending to was really not that important. This was a very sad story. And I found this in the newspaper, and I said, I've got to put it into my program. This girl was involved in a horrible crash after texting and driving. Now, she survived, and she didn't kill anyone, but guess what happened? Exactly 1 year to the date that she had her crash while texting and driving. She was doing again, and this time she wasn't that lucky. Can you imagine living through a horrendous crash where you were texting and driving and you didn't learn from your mistakes? And on the anniversary of that crash, you lose your life? How sad is that? That's terrible. This was actually something on Dr. Phil, but I couldn't find the video where it was hidden. Most of the videos that I have come from my laptop, and I'm on a desktop now doing this. So for some reason it didn't go over. Now I do want you to write this down. Most of you, this was part of what I wanted you to do for finding your article and coming up with what should have been different, what could have been different. The thing is that I want you to start to think and plan out when you drive, what am I going to do if I'm ever faced with this situation? Because if you have a plan, if you have an idea of what works, then you should be able to do it. Okay, the first thing is to turn off your phone. You're not going to be tempted to text or to look at your phone and receive a phone call if you don't even know it's going. It's ringing. Just turn it off. Then put it someplace that you can't reach. So now maybe you know that someone's trying to get a hold of you, but you don't know who it is. This is where you're going to look for, hopefully, a parking lot. Look for a safe place. If it comes to radio, find what you want to listen to and stick to it. Have a playlist. Have someone else in the car. Take care of it. Organize your time better. Look for a safe place. And by the way, you have to write this down. This is a New Hampshire law that I want you to be familiar with. You cannot be on the roadway off to the side while you're texting. It's got to be a driveway, parking lot. It can't be just off to the side. They just won't. They're not going to allow that. That is the fine print of the law. Okay? Now, yeah, I'll give it to you. It's better than driving and texting, yes, being over on the soft shoulder, but they just don't even want you there. You cannot be on a public way, okay, while you're on your phone. And you can't be on a stop sign. You can't be at a traffic light while you're stopped. I'll get to that. That's a good question. I'm echoing again for some reason. Okay, I see that. Okay, hopefully this is better. All right, hopefully, so let me know if I'm still echoing. I'll try to keep it down. I'll get to the GPS. That's a good question. What if you use your phone for GPS? GPS should be programmed prior to a drive, and then if you have to reroute, then you would have to look for a parking lot to do it. But it does allow you to somewhat use it while you're driving. But I'll get to that in just a moment. Don't be too sure you won't get caught for other things. Police are starting to use radar guns that will detect whether you're on your phone just while they're looking at what your speed is. So it must give them a signal that if something is coming off your vehicle, that you're on your phone. Or maybe you have a radar detector in your car and they're not going to be happy with that. State troopers are also getting into semi-tractor trailers, and they're driving along because they can look down. You can see his position's a little bit higher. So they're going to be using different ways to find people that are on their phone. And I think we've all done that. I think we've all been in a moving vehicle at some point, and we look over to the left or right of us, or maybe in our rearview mirror, and we go, oh, I can tell that person's on their phone. I think we know that. We can see that. So here comes the New Hampshire law. So I do want you to write this down. This basically took place almost 5 years ago in July. It states that no use of a handheld electronic device capable of providing voice or data communication while driving or temporarily halted in traffic for a stop sign or traffic signal or other momentarily delays. This includes cell phones, GPS tablets, iPods, iPads, any device that requires you to put data into it. So 911 calls will be allowed. That's for every age. So that's a given. Now, Bluetooth will be allowed for adults. You cannot use Bluetooth. Tractor trailers could still use a two-way radio. Teens under the age of 18 will not be allowed to use electronic devices except for that 911 call. Right? And I'd be careful about doing that while you're moving. And this is the penalty. Okay, $100 fine for your first offense, second offense $250, subsequent offense within a 2-year period is $500. And also remember that you're going to get points on your license. And that kind of reminds me that when we talked about insurance, we really didn't go over this. I want you to write down demerit points. DEMERRITT, demerit points. These are negative points that go on your license for things that you do wrong in your car. Once you hit some, enough demerit points, then you're going to lose your license. So just remember that. So that's it for distracted driving. I did want to kind of get into road rage. So let me flip over. Oh, here's one about one last thing about texting. This was when the law came into effect. This was not New Hampshire, but Massachusetts, just to show you what's happening.
His attention was distracted for over a minute in traffic on Route 93. He would go about 5 feet, and his attention would go right back to the PDA, and he would just continue texting, hands off the wheel, and drive another 2 feet. There was also a time where traffic had moved ahead, 5, 6 cars had passed him, and he just remained motionless because his attention was just drawn to the phone. So based on that, he was issued the monetary fine.
Well, today's enforcement focused on the brand new law that took effect at midnight last night, which is going to be texting while driving, using a PDA of any kind while driving, and the junior operator law of using a cell phone while driving. Overall, the state police are concerned more about distracted drivers and impeded operation. And impeded operation covers a lot of things besides the texting, besides the use of the PDA, such as eating while driving, reading directions while driving, and anything that's going to take your attention away from the roadway. Wearing headphones while driving, also illegal in Massachusetts.
It's a written warning, okay? Just pay more attention to the roadway, all right? Okay.
I think it's going to affect a lot of people. I mean, the signs I saw said, teens texting, so I don't text, but I got this thing all the time, and so somebody's going to nail me, and I know it. Every time I get an order for a pickup, it comes through, and I have to look at it in order to see what it is. Mainly, I look to see the name. I will look at it when I'm driving. I have to.
Be it a verbal warning, be it a written warning, being a monetary fine, every part of that is education.
So that is what was happening in Massachusetts. And usually when they enact a new law, they have a period of what they kind of call like a break-in, where they just issue verbal. Remember, we said there are 3 types of stops. There's a stop where they're verbally going to tell you what you did wrong and let you go. Then there's going to be a written warning, and then there's going to be the actual ticket. So they always initiate with a verbal warning for a day or 2 or a week, and then they start issuing the real citations. And it does get expensive. That's the thing about driving. It's so costly between insurance and gas and maintenance. Just don't break laws. Even if you're not hurting other people, you just don't want to lose your money that way. So don't do that. All right, I want you to take a few notes. I don't think we're going to get through all of this today, so we're just going to run into tomorrow, but we got plenty of time. Because what I've done tomorrow with the review is that if you want to text me questions tonight or tomorrow, about if you're not certain about certain information that we've covered. I feel bad that we're not in class where we can have dialogue. So just shoot me a text message if you want me to kind of highlight things tomorrow that you're not quite sure about. But for the most part, if you have taken good notes and you did well with the midterm and the questions that I gave you, and I think the homework that most people have sent in to me with the chapter reviews, at best, everybody got every question right. Maybe there's one or two wrong on a chapter, but it wasn't where it was really incorrect that I felt that you didn't understand the information. But we'll talk more about the final tomorrow, and I will have some questions just to kind of, get you, ready for it. And we'll finish up with a little bit of road rage. We'll talk about manual transmission. We'll talk about how to select fuel when you go to get gas. So we'll have probably about 25 minutes to a half hour of just kind of wrapping things up with a little bit of some light content. And then the rest will be just talking about the midterm. It seems like we just started with the final and stuff like that. And like I said, we'll do the final on Thursday. For those of you that I know that sometimes have issues because you have commitments, I honestly don't care when you do the final, as long as you do it by Saturday. That way I'll know when you come to do your textbook and make the payment for class that at least we've got the classroom portion taken care of. So we'll talk more about the final tomorrow, but let's just kind of get into road rage. What I want you to write down is that attitudes and behaviors will change on a daily basis. We're human. So the way that you're feeling today, if you're a licensed driver, the way that you feel right now, you carry that with you as you get into a car. I live very close to my neighbors. I live in an area where the house, I'm looking out the window right now, and the house that's right next to me is probably 17, 18 feet away. And then on the other side, it's probably close to about the same. So my neighbors are very, very close. Our driveways just abut each other. I saw a neighbor the other day just start reaming out his girlfriend or wife. It's a young, probably couple in their 20s. And they had a young child in the car. And he was just swearing and hollering at her. And I felt so bad. And you can almost guess what happened once she got in the car and they drove away. He didn't drive away, smoothly and easily. He squealed his tires. He braked real quick before he entered the roadway, and then he accelerated real quick when he left. And that's the way he was going to drive, because that's the behavior and attitude that he was showing in the parking lot. It shouldn't be that way. You can't let your emotions drive you when you're a driver, okay? You've got to check out. You've got to, make sure that you are under control when you get behind the wheel of a car. So here are two people that were involved in a road rage incident. And if you take a look at the article, one had a flashlight and another person had an angle grinder. If you don't know what an angle grinder is that it's a tool about the size of a drill, and it has a circular disc on it, and it's to cut through metal or to grind down metal. Why you would use that, unless it was portable, maybe it was one of these cordless ones, and he felt that's the way he's going to inflict pain. It's amazing that people will take things outside of their vehicle to go attack people. You can't just go out and try to yell at people and reason with people. People are leaving their vehicles with chains, with guns, with knives, here flashlights and grinders, trying to prove their point of why they're a better driver than you are, or you did something wrong and now I'm going to punish you. That's no way to go. It's always surprising when I read articles where people are injured or killed over things like, think about, why would someone get upset behind the wheel of a car while you're driving? I just want you to think about it. Throw an answer in the comments like we did just a moment ago about why there was a spike in cell phone use. So put it in the comments on YouTube here, or text me why you think people get upset while driving. What type of driving behavior would make people flip out? What would happen to you while you're driving that would make you just kind of fly off the handle? Okay, so just give me an idea of what your buttons. So maybe when I do drive with you, I'll make sure that we don't encounter these people because I know how you're going to react. So give me some idea of what really would upset you as a driver. Let me show you what happened in Massachusetts. I came across this. This will be a good thing to lead into it. Let's see what you think about this.
It's not a movie scene, but real-life road rage. After a fender bender, 65-year-old Richard Kamrowski jumped on the hood of an SUV, attempting to leave the scene. The driver speeding up to 70 miles per hour on the busy Massachusetts Turnpike during rush hour.
He kept going fast, slow, tried to get me to slide off. I wasn't getting off the car.
Kamrowski managed to hang on for miles as an onlooker captured the dangerous highway ride. At one point, you see Kamrowski looking down at his phone, dialing 911 for help.
Kind of like just survival mode.
The driver finally hit the brakes when Good Samaritans blocked him in. One bystander drawing a gun. Police arrested the driver, Mark Fitzgerald, for assault with a dangerous weapon, among other charges.
He took my water bottle out of my car. He smashed my window.
Police also arrested Kamrowski. He's charged with disorderly conduct. Two men on one wild ride that started with a minor crash and ended with major drama.
Isn't that crazy? Okay, you just got upset in a parking lot and it looks like someone's windshield was busted, and you get on someone's hood of their vehicle. I mean, they said that car was going 70 miles per hour. Okay, that could have very easily led to a death. He could have rolled off that vehicle, and then if someone that was driving on 93 didn't want to hit that person that just rolled off the car, he could have caused another crash where someone could have been injured or killed. People have to use their head. You know, cooler minds have to prevail. That is not smart. Okay, and notice they cited both of them. When you're both living, all of you are living at home right now, and you probably have younger siblings, and I'm sure your parents have yelled at you before about, just leave your brother or sister alone. It takes two to fight. Just don't do it. I don't care who started it, but just don't do it. The same thing with driving. And some of you have been texting in some of the things that would irritate you. Speeding, swerving, someone that's driving irresponsibly or reckless. These are all good things, but people just fly off the handle like if someone doesn't use a directional. Some people get really upset that people are texting and they're going to follow that person and just ream them out when they get to the school or to a parking lot. Tailgating, high beams, getting cut off. All these are bad driving behaviors that, yeah, it's going to make you a little upset, but you've got to be very careful of how you confront somebody. So let's kind of take a look at just a few things before we end for today. I'm going to go back to that video. I want you to write down the two words angry and mad. I want you to understand that you may think that they are the same, but they are different. Anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. If someone is mad, they're going to probably act out on that. So completely unrestrained by reason or judgment. So anger is where you're probably keeping most of it inside, or you could actually show your anger. Sometimes you could probably look at your parents. I'm going to just use parents because I have children. My children basically knew I would not have to say anything. I would not have to do anything. They could look at my face. They can look at my eyes. And my eyes would just, like lasers, go right through them. They could tell that I am angry. Not a word had to be said. Okay? Now, other people will act out on that. Okay, this is when the physical stuff. Okay, this is where you may throw something, screaming. Think of a young child if they don't get something in a store. What do we think? They have a tantrum, so they throw themselves on the floor. Okay, that's madness. All right, it's human to be angry at things. You may not like it, may not seem fair. Okay, a lot of times when we don't think things are fair is when we feel anger. Like, that person shouldn't have cut me off. Yeah, you're probably right, but you're not going to change it. It already happened. Okay, you're not going to really teach him a lesson, okay, because he's probably going to do it again. This is a woman that just epitomized how we should handle road rage. She was driving with her child on a Florida roadway, and she got passed. She was probably going too slow or going the speed limit, and she got flipped off by somebody in a Jeep, and they drove by. But the Jeep crashed and started to catch fire further down the road. I don't know what happened to the Jeep, but anyways, it went off the edge of the road and caught fire. Now, this woman could have driven on and said, that's calmer. That's, that's good payback. The way that you treated me, I'm glad, this is happening to you. She didn't do that. She decided that she was going to pull over to the side of the road and help this woman. So cooler heads did prevail. You don't have to fight anger with anger. Sometimes you just have to show some grace. You have to be the better person. You have to be responsible, okay, when you're behind the wheel. Reasons why people get upset. If they're late for work, you're going slow. It just totally freaks people out. You're causing me to be even more late. Or just people like to drive fast. You're going slow. You're going 58 in a 55. You're slightly over the speed limit, but that's still not fast enough. Okay? That's still not fast enough. They want to go faster. So they'll fly by you and give you the bird. I would almost bet most of you, because I know that a lot of you have done quite a bit of driving with your parents, I will almost guarantee that you've already experienced people that are not happy with you as a driver. They've honked the horn at you because you were too late pulling away from a green light, going too slow, didn't like the position you were on the road, forgot to dim your headlights, whatever it is, but you've probably already encountered road rage. And because your parents are with you, hopefully you've kept things in check. And by the way, it's always interesting when I have students in class, when I ask the question, do your parents suffer from road rage? I would say 75%. 3/4 of my students will always tell me that their parents scream at other cars. And I have a feeling if your parents do that, you may model the behavior of your parents. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that. I always laugh at people that scream inside a car. They probably don't hear you. Why are you screaming and swearing inside of the car? It's just making your blood pressure rise and your heartbeat go faster. It's not doing anything to make anything better. Sometimes you don't see traffic and you pull out in front of somebody and you're going to irritate them. Being tailgate could go both ways. You're tailgating somebody and they're angry, or someone's tailgating you and you're angry. How many people don't like being passed? It's a dotted line. Legally, they can do it. They just do it, and it still makes you upset. Taking someone's parking spot. I did have a video. I think I'm going to try to dig it up. I didn't have it ready for today. I think I can find it. It was a sitcom, Malcolm in the Middle. I've only seen it a couple times, but someone gave this to me many years ago of a Malcolm in the Middle sitcom about taking somebody's parking spot and how they reacted. So I think what we'll do is we'll start tomorrow's class with this video of someone taking somebody's parking spot and how they kind of flipped out. So we'll do that. So that's what we're going to start with tomorrow. Luckily, if you take a look at your syllabus here, guess what? There is no homework for tonight. We are just going to finish up, like I said, on road rage. We're going to talk about manual transmission because I didn't do it the first week of class. Also about things to think about when you go to the gas pump. I want to kind of cover that. and then we'll get into the questions that I prepared. They're going to be somewhat like the state would give you or what you'll find on the final for Thursday. And then Thursday, you'll basically see this screen. I will be like this. We will not do any type of PowerPoint. It's going to be a link like you've done. I will just kind of lay back in my seat like this. And I will wait for you to give me messages on YouTube or on your phone indicating you don't understand a question. I will be around, I guess you could say, like to proctor the test. If you choose to do it, not the time tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And you've got to, by the way, if you are not going to do it at 4 o'clock tomorrow, you have to tell me why and when you are going to do it. That way, if you do it later in the evening, I'll have my phone near me. So if you have a question, I can try to answer it for you. But like the midterm, I do want you to try to do it on your own. I don't want you to go back through your notes. If you do not do well, there is a retake. So you have another shot at it. And just like I said earlier today, please go through this. Look through your text messages. I think probably at least half of you have everything in, and it's looking pretty good. So go through this, make sure everything looks good. So I guess tonight your homework is to make sure everything is complete. So do that, and you're going to be all set. Oh, sorry about that. So that's today's lesson. Distracted driving and a little bit of road rage. We'll finish up this tomorrow. So have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.